Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, September 27th, 2021. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors tonight. We will begin with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all our guests, those that are here in the boardroom with us, and those of you that are online watching us conduct this meeting tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your precious schedules to be with us tonight. Moving on, I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
I will make the motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion's been made by Director Prowse. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Seconded by Director Johnson, which, by the way, good to see you here, Ken. Good to have you back. Thanks for being here tonight. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to public comment. We do have a couple requests tonight. Members of the community who wish to speak to the board during public comment period should sign up before the meeting starts. A sign-up sheet is available at the back right side of the boardroom, usually by 6:45 p.m. Please print your name and complete address legibly on the sign-up sheet. When the board is ready, the president will refer to the sign-up sheet and call out the names in the order that they appear. When addressing the board, when your name is called, approach the front table, speak into the microphone, giving your full name and where you live for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Be respectful of the board when speaking. Be ready to respond to questions from the board if asked. Address your testimony to board members, not the audience. Do not address questions to the board. The board's goal for public comment period is to hear your concerns, comments, and opinions. Questions can be answered through calls or letters to board members. So tonight, Mr. Jake Mendez Jr. has requested some time. Someone's on their way there, Jake.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Mendez Jr. I reside here at Othello, Washington. I just want to respond to the live school board meeting video that was conducted. I think it was this past weekend or a few days ago. I just want to address the online concerns and regarding the rumors or the allegations as far as harassment and bullying and some homophobic statements regarding a staff. That's just one of my concerns, and also another concern in regarding to whether if students are bullying or being bullied regardless of their vaccination status or not. That's just one of my concerns I'd like to address to all of you out there, and just wanted to inform you that I did inform the Washington School or the Washington Board of Education. I did mention it to all the District 9 or the representatives of District 9. And also, I just wanted to inform you that under RCW 38A.300.2851, under bullying harassment, sections E, G, H, I, are one of the only foundings that I could only respond to any of the comments and the accusations have been made related to that, and it's up to the school officials and the school boards to abide by that RCW. And also I wanted to mention that I've watched all the TVW videos, press conference on the coronavirus, and Jay Inslee and the health department of Dr. Shaw did not mention any House bill of any school insurance that's federally funded for any accountability if anyone were to get contact with the coronavirus on school grounds or within student to staff, from staff to student. So that opens a liability lawsuit towards you guys for the public to be aware of. And that's something I wanted to share to inform the public. That's something that's optional. That's something, if they have the legal means and the financial means to pursue a lawsuit of any means of anyone contact with the coronavirus, that's what is something that the state of Washington of all schools does not have. And Mr. Perez and I, we did our homework, we researched, and there is no any House bill that protects all federally funded schools as far as accountability. So I wanted to address that so the public could be aware, it'd be noted, so like that, if anyone comes in contact, they'd be aware of that. That's all I have for now. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be here after the meeting.
Thank you.
Jake, can you give us the RCW again? That was really fast, and those are so long always.
Yes. RCW 28 A as in alpha .300 .2851 sections E, G, H, and I.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I definitely wrote that down wrong the first time.
All right, tonight we also have Zulema Martinez. If you could come up to the mic.
You're welcome to sit or stand, whichever
Okay.
you're more comfortable with.
Well, I'll probably sit because I'm a little nervous. I don't like speaking in front of people. But my name is Selema Martinez, and I live here in Othello, Washington. And so I have talked to Pete Perez as well, and we went over about offering online learning, and he did mention that that was not a family demand right now. Not a lot of people have demanded it. I feel like online learning would solve a lot of problems, which would, like I told him, giving teachers the opportunity to teach online if they choose not to vaccinated, and as he has stated as well, that how would that come across to all the other teachers who got vaccinated. And I do see his point, but like he said, they chose to get vaccinated, so we should have an option for the teachers who choose not to. Not only would it give the teachers jobs, but for my family, for my son, I did attend his class in kindergarten, and for about the time that I was there, 30 minutes, a teacher barely realized that a child did not have her mask on. After 30 minutes, another child did not have their mask on. And then when they did, it was falling off their face. I did talk to the principal at that school, but I was told that if that were to happen, they would isolate that child and they would contact parents. That did not happen in the time that I was there, and that was the protocol that was set up with you guys and the board. So I just thought, you know, if that's happening, and I'm there as a parent, what makes me think that's not happening in all the other classes and all the other schools? As you guys have stated, you guys have visited the schools and stuff. Pete Perez, you know, if he's in the classroom, of course, teachers are gonna make sure that they're following the rules as he is their boss as well. But like I said, I was there and that did not happen. For my little one, he and my family have a weak immune system, and that's why we decided we did not want to send him. But if we did not send him, he would not be guaranteed his spot at the same teacher or the same school. So just roaming him around would be hard, but not only that, it would also stop the bullying that's going on with the kids in the high school that are being bullied for not being vaccinated. I've seen that parents are concerned about having counseling for kids online when we should be using those resources for kids who are being bullied. You know, I know the resolution would be to help kids get vaccinated and get more information on that, but what makes you guys think that they're not gonna go get it just so they're not being bullied and go against their family's beliefs? And I would like to say, like, I was in the school district back in 2015, I graduated, I was bullied here. I came and I talked to the superintendent at the time, and he said there was no form for me to put out for being bullied, and I was given the same rules as the bullies. So in reality, I was re-victimized by the district. And not only that, if the staff is bullying and not taking action, even though you guys are taking classes for frontline, what makes you think the kids are going to want to come to you?
Thank you. Moving on to item B2, board member discussion. Legislative report, Director Stevenson.
Many of the things that I wanted to discuss are also their own bullet items. I do want to make sure that, Mike, you are registered for our WASDA annual conference, is not what it's called. Hold on.
General Assembly.
Yes, General Assembly, and planning on doing that remotely.
As of today,
Okay.
yes.
It would probably be a good idea for us to discuss some of those things that are up for votes. Could we put that on the next agenda? Maybe I mean, it's a fat book.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just pull out the things that I
Might be
feel like are
pertinent.
the biggest issues that we need to discuss so that we can make some decisions so that Mike can vote accordingly for us.
I'll interject, Jen, on, I'm going to jump a few bullets, but Marissa at about 5 o'clock this afternoon received an email from the city where they would like to cancel the meeting that we had programmed and move it to like January.
The one that's October 5th?
Yes.
Okay,
So I just, while you were looking for some info, I figured
Okay.
I'd try to redeem some time.
awesome. Okay. And they have started their weekly WASDA meetings again by phone. And WASDA stands for Washington State School Directors Association. We have consistently, there's been questions about what are other states doing about these things and how are other states dealing with these things. And so they put it out at this last meeting. NSBA is National School Board Association. Could you bring up that document on the screen so we can look at it? How different states are dealing with vaccines, whether there's a mandate or not, face masks, whether there's a mandate or not. Some of those are, so let's start going. I mean, there's a lot of information here, but if you can scroll up to the map, I think it's page 2, maybe 3. Okay, there we go. This is percentages of vaccinated people across the state, not just for employees, I think. And so I think our state is in the high 60s. We're not the highest though. There are some in the 70s. There are some in the 40s. So I thought that this was an interesting document to see. Okay, then if you'll keep going to the next map. I think it's like the next state. A few little details on different states. Okay, so this is face masks. Gray is there's a statewide mandate. Blue, it is a local decision whether students wear and staff wear masks. Orange is the state has prohibited mask mandates, even though there's some places, some school districts in those orange that have them. So just another interesting chart. And then I think there was one last thing. Let me pull up mine and see before I have you scroll through and go, oh, there's nothing else there. It's been like a week since I've looked at that. There's some information on different states, some information on different school boards. Okay, this was interesting, but is difficult to kind of decipher. The largest school districts, the 120 largest school districts for each state. And what their policies are about face masks. So predominantly there is, 120 largest school districts across the United States, not per state. So Washington has one of those. I assume that that would be Seattle because that's the largest one for our state. Texas has a lot of them. Florida has a lot of them. So those are some interesting things. 77% have required face masks of those 120 largest school districts. Then the next chart is 120 of the smallest school districts across the nation. 58% of those are optional for their face masks. 30% are required. 12% only on the school bus. So there's a lot of great information on this thing. But I just thought that that was interesting to see those things, how other states are dealing with it, also by size, how they're dealing with different components of that. So I wanted to share that.
Jen, I forgot at the beginning of the meeting to ask if any translation was necessary. Not seeing any. Want to thank the translator that's here. Thank you for being here.
So those were the biggest things that were legislative reports, just for us to be ready for General Assembly for Mike to vote. And most of all, to what we consider the top few topics are that we want to have WASDA go after for the upcoming legislative session. So, do you want to take the next one? Mike?
Conference attendance. The WASDA conference. I think we're all.
So we're all
up.
scheduled. Which of us are in WASDA's in person? Because I know that there was. Okay. Because I know there was a waiting list potentially.
Yeah, I know there were some adjustments in King County around requirements and participation for folks in those kinds of conferences and events. And so we wanted to connect with the board individually to determine whether or not they'd be participating in person or remotely.
Okay, great. Good to know that there's updates. So it is in Bellevue, right? This year?
I believe so.
Okay.
But as I think we should be aware, there are some counties in Western Washington that are, for conferences and entertainment and different venues, are requiring proof of vaccination or a negative test within 3 days of attendance. And so those parameters have been added since we registered for the event. And so we just want to confirm with folks that they're still comfortable attending.
Okay.
Pete, do you know, is it one or the other or both?
I believe it's one or the other.
Okay.
Okay, when do they need to be notified by? I was not aware of this last minute thing.
Yeah, I think the primary notification would be transportation to and from the event for folks who want to attend in person and the housing that would be required. But other than that, I think WASDA would be comfortable. You know, the sooner the better, obviously, for them to prepare. But Marisa can check in with you offline independently, so you can do that in a more private setting.
Okay.
Great. Always just good to have updates.
Okay. Jen, bullet number 3 there, is it on our, I assume it's on our calendar. Have you made contact with them? Are we still on for a meeting with our legislators? I know you've been kind of the liaison there.
I cannot remember what our discussion was with them about when we did the last in person.
I vaguely remember talking about towards closer to the October 18th date, see if there was going to be any updates before then.
Isn't it on the calendar?
It says, okay, so I found October to be determined, special meeting with the state legislators. Does that sound right to you guys as well?
Yeah, our recollection was the board set a window of time when we created that calendar several months ago.
Okay.
And so we just wanted to bring it back to your attention to see if that's in fact something we wanted to move forward with and what date the board might be interested in coordinating that. And if it doesn't happen in October and you all need to push it out, we'll adjust the calendar as needed.
Can we come up with 2 or 3 dates right now? beginning of November or end of October.
Is there anything vital that we need to speak with them about right now?
Vital, no. That was just kind of what we had set up, because we wanted to keep in touch with them. I think that they would be interested in hearing what's going on, definitely.
Are we
if-
trying to beat a deadline, like before they go back to into session or anything like that?
That's January.
Okay.
No, I think you can, we have access to them individually. If, I think I see Sharon, I see Harvest here, and everybody being so busy and everything else, so actually trying to pin down some dates is, even for myself, pretty tough right now.
Okay.
But maybe, Jen, maybe if you can contact them to see if perhaps they have an open window that might work, or if
Okay,
there's-
so you want them to give us dates, 2 or
if
3?
if there's
Okay.
something there.
That's fine.
Yeah, because it may not even, their schedules may be packed with stuff as well.
Oh, always.
So if you could get back to us to see what their availability is.
Okay, so
and-
beginning of November, Sharon, is that reasonable for Harvest? When is Harvest? Does Harvest ever end?
The part in November is easier for me to be
Yeah.
here.
Beginning of November, is that what you said?
I mean, I can do it in November
Okay,
if we just don't have a lot of other stuff on the docket here, so.
right. Does that,
Yeah.
After-
If they got some availability, get back to us, and
Okay.
maybe we'll fine tune it if it's gonna work out. And they've been very, very open, and we have most of their, if not their phone numbers, their emails and stuff. If there's anything pressing on our end that we want to inquire about, they've been very good about collaborating with us.
yes. Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, Wahida site visit, October 19th.
Yeah, so I know we're going to hear tonight from the principal at Mcfarland, Jessica Schenk, and I were thinking back to the commentary that was shared during that visit. I know many of the board members expressed a desire to have those meetings in the morning, so we wanted to confirm that, whether or not you wanted to move forward with an AM experience. And then the last piece, so that they can create the agenda and share it at the next board meeting, was around the student interaction piece. There was really good feedback from you all about the opportunity to be in more classes rather than have that student focus group, and still have an opportunity to interact with students in their classroom environment. So really just those two questions. Do you want to have the visit in the morning, and do you want to alter the student group by having it be part of the classroom visits?
I liked our agenda at MMS myself, and I think more time in the classrooms would be my choice. And keeping it in the AM as well, I think would be good for me.
I liked the agenda too. The only thing that I wish we could have had was more time with the teachers. But, I mean, like Jessica said, they aren't required to come in
Mhm.
until a certain time. And so it doesn't feel like we really have like good quality time with the teachers in that time period. So I don't know how to fix that unless we went to or went into the afternoon. But I think the morning is probably,
Yeah, in the afternoon, I'm afraid we'd run into the end of the day and needing to get back home and things of that nature as well.
I really like the agenda. I liked being in the classroom with the kids, and I can go either way.
Okay.
So,
I loved it. I loved just being able to wander and maybe being told, this is not a good class to pop into. Or for whatever reason or something, or, but just being able to,
Sure. I think, Pete, if there's a class that's testing, I know we barged in on one, if those can be pointed out to us as, don't come in here. But I think the more time in the classrooms, I think, is what we'll go with, in lieu of the student time.
All right, so just to confirm, we'll schedule the visit for the AM. We'll attempt to adjust it, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, to include more opportunities for staff to interact with the board. And we'll make sure that the interactions with students happen in the classroom setting, and be mindful of, there's a fine line there about flexibility and go where you want, see the things that you think you need to see and that your constituents want you to be observing, and, you know, being more controlled. But we'll try and walk that line and replicate what happened at Mcfarland. I think it was an excellent visit. So thank you for the feedback, and we'll bring the agenda to the board at the next meeting.
Okay.
I think also, and just being very clear about if staff end up coming late, we would rather them come in late than not come at all. I know some people, my husband, will not walk into church late. He would rather stay in the foyer and listen. But we want them in, even if that's not disruptive for us.
Hey, Pete, I have a question. What if we were able to do our site visits on a late start Monday, so that we could get there at the end of, I mean, teachers are already there for the morning time. This is just a thought for future visits. If we end up doing it at the tail end of late start Monday, so that they're already there and we could have some time with the teachers and then do our site visit after that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. What it would require is a conversation, particularly with OEA, around the teacher's use of that time and the expected and the schedule that's been created. But certainly something we could consider to balance that idea about more interactions in time and more voice coming from the employees to the board. So certainly bring it up in labor management meetings with the association.
Perfect, thank you.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so in honor of Heidi Johnson, the board wanted to do something special. So Mike and I had a conversation, and then I had reached out to Ken. And so we've come up with this. And so I'm just going to read the phrasing that we have. The Othello School Board of Directors would like to honor Heidi Johnson with a memorial bench. This bench will be located at Scootney Springs Elementary and will be provided with donations only. No taxpayer money will be used. As a board, we want to honor the nearly 15 years of service and employment of Heidi and our fellow board member, Ken. If there are any excess funds, we will give them to the family. Donations could be made to any board member, Venmo to me. I know Lindsay has gotten some as well. Please label them as Heidi's Bench if you're going to Venmo us. Or there is an account at STCU, Spokane Teachers Credit Union, under Heidi Johnson Memorial Bench. So the plan was to have this completely be done with not taxpayer funds. But the arrangement was, I realized later on through some conversations, that we were going to have maintenance install it. If we have maintenance install it, that is technically taxpayer funds. So wanted to have a conversation about, do we need to have it installed otherwise? Just so that that's not a concern.
Yeah, I think what we want to make sure that we do to protect everyone that's interested in this project is go back to not only our past practices, but our policies and procedures. So certainly from a liability perspective, we want to make sure that it's professionally installed and safe for folks to use for years to come. So certainly if you ask me today and direct me to go away and look at some of the components around that, we'll bring that back to the board in a timely way to see how we can balance the private part of this interaction with, it is a public facility and public land and public ground, and we may need some support from folks, but certainly we can do that legwork.
Okay, great. And then another component of the question is, we had individually posted that on Facebook for those that are able and willing to, and then could we have that posted on the School Board of Directors Facebook page? I know that that's run by the district. Is that an okay?
Yeah, I'll confirm the appropriateness of it. The fact having it done is a pretty simple act, but I will confirm that as well.
Okay.
And if you'll send us the messaging directly that you would like us to put out there, that would be helpful.
Okay. And Ken, if you can get a photo of the two of you. Photos make it better. Because I fundraise for my job, I think of things in terms of how to get the most money. Another idea that I had, but I don't know if this would even work, that I need to ask the district and Pete about is for those board members that are willing and interested to go 2 by 2 to different campuses and just inform staff, not at a mandatory meeting, at a meeting that would be completely optional, of what our plans are, because I know that there's a lot of people that wanted to support in some way. But I don't know how and if that is overstepping or appropriate.
Yeah, I think what might be best perhaps is if we had just maybe a one-page agenda for me to take away, and so to ask the appropriate individuals and get the appropriate guidance to not only protect the district, but also to protect the board and to protect Ken and his family, to make sure we do this in just the right way. It's important that we get it right.
Yeah.
So maybe, Jen, if you could develop for me just a one-pager about the specific questions that you have, related to, and perhaps categorize them in fundraising and installation and communicating with staff, and I'll get all those answered for you this week.
And I didn't send all those questions to you beforehand to warn you that they were coming either, so, okay. I can definitely do
If a site visit doesn't work and an email is more appropriate to send out to the district from the school board, I mean, that works too, just as long as they know
I
what
just
we're
don't-
doing and the basic idea.
Right, I just don't want someone to feel left out if they wanted to do something, because I think many of us have had people come up to us and say, how can we help, what can we do? Okay, so fundraising, install, anything else that Facebook?
No, I think it starts with right now. I mean, those that are listening to us, those that are watching us, share the word. Get it out there that there's something there, and I think this is the beginning of it right there.
All right, thank you. I think.
All right, plus deltas of our last meeting. Peaceful meeting, clarification on certain items, openness to discuss. We appreciated the time, appreciated the public comment, and we thought the agenda was well planned. I see that we had the only one student rep tonight. I think our reps did notify us of not being here, if I heard correctly when the meeting was here. We need to be appreciative of them. They may, I don't know if it's sports, if it's studying, regardless of what it is. I'm sure their reasons are valid. But they're an important part of us, and hopefully they can join us here at the next meeting. Any other observations?
No. I do have a question before we move on from
Okay.
board member discussions. Pete, do you know of any sort of guidance statewide or even locally about teachers that aren't vaccinated being required to wear specific face masks, face shields, gloves, any sort of you're not vaccinated?
Above and beyond stuff?
Yeah, you're not vaccinated, so you will be required to do this.
Yep. Certainly I've heard some chatter out there across the region. I've not confirmed it with any of the neighboring school districts, but I have heard of a couple in our region that are requiring unvaccinated employees to in fact wear the KN95 masks, so different level of masking. I haven't confirmed how they're going to pay for that or if that in fact is a requirement, but I've heard that there are messages out there and emails from the district indicating that. I've also heard comment about availability to interact with staff, so even creating lunch settings where if you're unvaccinated, you're required to eat alone, not to interact with other staff members. So there are certainly some adjustments to the accommodations that come through the exemption process that a district has the ability to say, these are the new accommodations, these are the new expectations. And I would imagine they're being driven by the Department of Health, certainly collaboration with them. We have not indicated to our employees that that's a practice. That hasn't been indicated on the accommodations that we have so far processed and given back to them. That does not mean that at some point that the Department of Health could recommend to us or could share with us, hey, this makes more sense for folks who are unvaccinated. So that's what I'm hearing across the region. I haven't heard anything from the state level that those are going to be requirements for staff.
Okay, so for now, it's a local decision. You make the decision in your district. until the health department says otherwise.
Absolutely, and I think the other piece about that local thing that's important is the local health officer. And for us, it's sort of that connection between Adams and Grant County. I was in a meeting this morning for about an hour with the superintendents and other school staff from our area with Dr. Bresney from Grant County. I've been in those meetings for the last several months. I have not heard mention of that as a requirement. Nothing was shared today that said that that's how you should process those accommodations or that that was going to be a requirement to grant those exemptions with those limitations.
Perfect. Thank
Again,
you.
having said that, it doesn't mean at some point that the district couldn't say to continue with this accommodation based on what's happening in the community and the experience that we're having with COVID, they may be adjusted. But we don't have any plans leaning in that direction right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, before we move on, before we go on to item C1, because we don't have any student reps tonight, I would like to take this chance to congratulate Amy Parrish, who's in attendance tonight, on her appointment to the Board of Trustees at Big Bend Community College. Congratulations, Amy. Good job, very well deserved, and represent. Thank you for being here tonight. All right. Okay, moving on to item, neither of the gals is on virtually, are they, Marisa? Okay, maybe they were on and maybe I was going to skip them. Item C1, I will entertain a motion to approve required approvals tonight.
I motion to approve required approvals, but I feel Jen coming strong with something, so.
We have a,
There's been a motion made to
Oh, you're
approve
right.
required approvals. Is
I
there-
will second that, but I do have 2 questions before we vote, if that's okay. We are paying $22,000 and change to Gold Star Foods, and I haven't seen Gold Star Foods listed yet.
Yeah, Gold Star was formerly known as Tools for Schools, which has been one of our vendors for food purchases. So this is a new group in a new category. So good,
Okay.
good catch.
Interesting that they changed from Tools for Schools to that. And then ICEV for $9,000. Who are they?
Yep, that's a supplemental online curriculum for our CTE programming. So some of the new initiatives running at the high school and middle school level as it relates to CTE.
Okay, great.
There's been a motion made, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'll now entertain a motion to approve account payable warrant 2.
I move we approve accounts payable warrants 2.
Motion's
second.
been made by Director Stevenson, seconded by Director Prowse. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed?
And I will have to abstain from this vote.
Motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. Moving on to item B, or
C.
C3, superintendent informational items.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment just for my chunk here to, I know the public comment was, it's always to address the board, and certainly we're careful about taking questions from the folks who come in and present, but I think it's appropriate for me just to take 1 minute on what is a cold and rainy night for folks who came out. And I wanted to make a point of acknowledgement, and that's that each of these individuals has either called me or come in and met with me about concerns that they have about the experience that our students are having or that their students are having. And each time that I have those opportunities to meet with folks, I let them know that come share your voice, come share your story. It's important that people hear that. And I just wanted to acknowledge them for following through and for doing it in a civil and courteous way. And it can be nerve-wracking to get up there and share your piece on video in front of folks. And I think the other thing we agreed upon in my office or on the phone is that we're not always going to agree on things, but I'm always going to be respectful with them, answer their questions, and do the best I can to represent them and their families. And I asked the same of them. And so I appreciate the folks who come out and participate in that way, and I think we should acknowledge that. So thank you for being here tonight. Really quickly around the DOP review process. I committed last time to letting you know what I heard from folks who have been through that process and support our transition from policy governance to a more traditional model. So I want to share with you a couple of items. One is that this should not be a function of the board. I don't think you all want to take on those thousands of documents to review those individually and independently. I was not able to find anyone, and the folks at the ESD had not indicated any board that ever took that on. That it's just a daunting task. So it's probably not best that we bring those each night to you, because we'll be here for 10 years reviewing them. So here's really probably the most appropriate process, that we would take the next 12 to 18 months in sort of a slow rollout in sections. And the ones that we would bring to you, probably either a few every board meeting or every other board meeting, would be the ones that are out of compliance or need adjustment or update. That's been happening all along through our partnership with WASDA and collaboration. They keep, those things are vetted by the Attorney General. They're vetted by WASDA's legal team. We should not adjust those. They send them out as recommendation. You have adopted several over the last few years. But we should review that process, that cleanup process, and then bring those to you. And imagine it would be in two buckets. One would be, these are good to go, these are not. And we would go through them in a first and second reading, just like you do with other policies and procedures. And we, again, would be cautious about adjusting them outside of what WASDA recommends. So what I'm suggesting or recommending is that at the next board meeting, I could bring to you a plan outlining, here are the categories, here's how long we think it might take, here are the board meetings when we would bring particular items, and the report would either be the items in the 1000 series are all in compliance, items in 1000 we're good, except for these 5, we need you to take a look at these 5. And it would be that kind of process.
That's good.
Questions about that?
Good.
Okay, so we'll bring the timeline at the next meeting and share with you, you know, our plan for making sure that those are what they need to be. The next piece, I think, just for out as a matter of transition, is it appropriate for me to go to C3.3 and let's just let Amy finish there since I have the mic? All right, thanks, Amy. So if we'll call up the presentation there, what you'll note is just a brief update from our previous meeting around the mandate from the governor as it relates to vaccines for staff. And so the board, you have in front of you a document. As of Friday, when we completed this report, you can see that just over 90% of our employees had met the mandate. And so answering that question that many folks had during the online forum that I held last week, and others have certainly asked, it's a valid question. Will we have a staffing shortage? Well, we don't think so. There might be a handful of folks that choose a different route and don't meet the mandate, but as of now, actually today it was reported to me that we're just around 93% now. So still a handful of folks, right around 40 across the system that we're trying to work with and partner with, and we'll communicate with them tomorrow about the expectations and the interactive process that's required to support them in making the right decision about what makes sense for them and their families. I do want to note one change for the public and for the board as well. You'll notice the N size in this document is 610, and the one we shared previously was closer to 645. What we did this time around is we excluded the board members and any of our athletic coaches who aren't also employees in another area. So that's why the N size is just a little bit smaller than last time. Questions about potential staffing shortage?
So when you're talking about that N, you're saying that some of the coaches were potentially counted twice?
No,
that what you're
good
saying?
question. What I'm saying is we have about 35 employees who only coach. And we included them last time in sharing with you where they were in their process. So we have 610 employees that work in our schools day to day.
Okay.
About 645 when you include some of our coaches who have other jobs or other careers.
But the coaches are also,
Also required, yes, absolutely.
okay, you're just
What I was
staff
trying to do was
as a-
refine it
okay.
for what's going to happen at school on the 18th.
Okay,
And so the next slide digs a little deeper into that idea. Well, this just shares, and it ties to some of the public comment today and others, and perhaps to Director Prowse's question about the masking and whatnot. We're about 63% vaccinated of all staff, and still a number of folks to hear from. So we'll continue to process those numbers and share them with the board and the community. But that idea about 70% is really what we're hearing across the state, and I think across much of the country. This morning in the Department of Health meeting, I think, Jen, you shared some numbers earlier about what's happening in Washington. Folks who have completed a vaccine, it really, I think it's around 68% in the state of Washington, and those who have initiated, it's just a little bit, it's about 75 when you consider those who have started. So if they finish their course, Washington's going to be around 75% here in the next couple weeks. So the district, not that different.
According to the health department, Pete, is that when we're considered to have herd immunity? Like, is that the goal, is to hit 75 and then then we're kind of good to go?
I haven't heard that for several months in those meetings. One of the terms that I've heard more frequently now is community immunity. It's so community driven. What's happening at each school site, what's happening in Othello, what's happening in Adams County, those kinds of things. But they're not throwing out numbers, and they're just saying targets, as many folks as possible, that is what the folks on the medical side say. The more that you can get vaccinated, the better chance you have of keeping your schools open.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide does dig a little deeper, and this is specific to classroom teachers. So you're going to notice that the number here, the N size, is 277. So the folks that are not represented in this might be our school counselors, our instructional coaches, our K-3 instructional specialists. Some of those folks who don't have a classroom assigned to them, we excluded them from this count just to have a good idea of basic ed, a classroom for our students on the 18th. And you can see that about 255 of our folks have already met the standards for the mandate requirement, and we have about 22 that we need to hear from. So we understand what sites those folks work at. We'll continue to try and partner with them and the required interactive process so that they, again, have enough information to make the decision that works best for them and their families, but is also mindful of the requirements of the district and us being able to operate on the 18th. So feeling okay about that number, and just hoping that those 22 folks who still need some time get the support they need. Questions there about that one? There have been some questions about covering, because, and folks feeling, this is a comment that I've heard from a few folks, like, well, are we just a number? Are we? Certainly not. But it's important that as employers, we're mindful of the staffing that we need to run our schools, particularly from a classroom teacher level. So we do have some plans in place if we had to address all 22 of those staff members and they determined that they weren't eligible to continue working on the 18th. And so we have enough staff in those other categories where we could cover it, but it certainly wouldn't be the experience that we're offering students now, and it's not the desire of the district. I'm so hopeful that every staff member that we have now is able to find enough clarity to get where they need to be on the 18th to continue to work for the Othello School District.
I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The board, I believe all of us share that same hope and that same prayer that we will have all of our people with us on the other side of this. Can I ask a question real quick, Pete?
Yes.
When we had just recently the vaccine clinic where we offered it to students with parent approval and staff members, do you have a rough idea of how many people we had participate in that?
Yeah, it was in the neighborhood of 30, and 2 were students. So very few students took advantage of it. We didn't advertise it to students so much. We advertised it to our staff, but yeah, we haven't actually gone down the road of pursuing a student vaccine clinic. I think there's still communication I'd want to have with the board and some of our other constituents about making that available for folks, but it's not something that we've organized as of yet.
Great. And I don't know if you have the answer to this either, but when you mentioned that online forum that you did with the community just recently, do you have any idea how many people participated in that?
I'm not sure how many views it got, right? That's the lingo of social media.
Yeah.
But I think the day after, Ed told me it had 1,700 independent views, which
Wow.
for anything that we put out was quite large. So I'm not certain where that ended or what other comments came from it, but I know there were a couple of questions asked in the forum that Ed shared with me afterward that I hope were addressed here, that, just a challenge, particularly around the staffing concern and are we going to be able to operate schools safely. So again, cautiously optimistic and hopeful that everyone, again, gets the support they need to make the best decision for them and their family.
Well, thank you. You guys have been working around the clock, so thank you for everything you've put into making sure that our staff have all of the options that are available to them, so thank you.
And then I want to just duplicate some of what Lindsay has said as well. Every classroom teacher is essential. We want and need every classroom teacher that we currently have. Every one of our, so if this is 610, and then we have an extra 35 or so coaches, so every one of those 645, those are not just numbers to us as the board. Every single one of those people are essential for our district to run and function, and we want everyone to still be with us on the 19th.
Pete, I was wondering if I could ask a little bit about the testing. So I've had several people ask me, when the tests come in, what is our protocol, or how, do we have something written down how we go about, what if the student's sick, or how they decipher who gets to be tested? With
Yeah,
the parent
that's-
approval, is that right?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I guess as I've thought about it more over the weekend, it's an unfortunate question that school districts and school employees, absent our folks who are either RNs or CNAs or medical assistants, are having to answer these types of questions. But here's what we've learned about it. The resources are here. We have, I don't know, in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 rapid tests available. Some of our staff went through training today where they had to perform a self-assessment just so they could understand how it works. Those resources are here. The folks have now been trained, at least at the nursing level, and we're providing some of that information to our principals. But this is certainly not a principal role. They have to know an awful lot about it, how to communicate with families, how to understand how fast the process works, how to work to keep cohorts open, and what role testing plays a part in that. But also what should be remembered is we have to communicate all of this with the Department of Health, and they are certainly overwhelmed. So reaching out to them, even when so here's an example that we had considered. We sent 200 students, well, we sent the high school online because we had about 200 students that we thought we would have to quarantine. Could we test all 200 students and come back next week and say, here we are? We're not sure the Department of Health is set up for that. We're not sure what kind of response we would be required to take if 10 of those students came back positive. Would we have to do a further test? Those kinds of questions. So long story short, the tests are here. Our staff are trained. We're going to use them in a way, and the sole purpose of them is to make sure students can be in class more often. So we're going to review the flow chart and matrix that the Department of Health uses. A revised version of that was shared with us today, and they're all being built in the interest of keeping more students in class more often. One of the other comments shared today by the Department of Health was typically it had been 2 students in a classroom would shut down that cohort, that group of students. What they're noticing across schools in our region and others is that many of those are not connected. If you look at the COVID transparency sheet on the Othello School District website, you'll see that we have a number of cases at Othello High School, and we had a number at Mcfarland Middle School, a week or 10 days ago. But many of the other schools, it's just one case in the last 14 days. And so our staff are doing an excellent job. Our students are doing an excellent job. Are there times when masks slip? Absolutely. Are there times when we have to exclude a whole class of students because we're not 100% positive? And we do that. We do that because we want to keep everybody safe. Testing will add another layer. It's not the answer, but it's a piece of the answer, and so we're excited to have that. I think it'll take some pressure off of CBHA, some pressure off the Department of Health, and allow us to get kids back in class more quickly.
Yes.
The other piece about testing from the employee perspective, the question came up from Director Prowse about masking and other requirements for folks that are unvaccinated. The federal guidance that came out from Biden around 100 employees and the testing if you're not vaccinated, all that stuff, that plan hasn't been put together. We're not sure what the expectation is going to be for the school district or for any employee with more than 100 employees. But at some point, we may be required to test all of those folks on a weekly basis to make sure that they can continue to come to work. So lots of details to work out around testing, but we're there, we're able to do it, and we're going to use them to keep more kids in class more often. The last slide for you is just an update around what we shared with you at our last board meeting. There's still some opportunity for folks who are interested in either getting a second dose of a particular vaccine or the Johnson & Johnson first dose, and then the deadlines for the exemption requests to allow the district to process those. Those folks, those 42 folks that we're referencing, they're sort of in that band between now and October 6th. So we'll continue to reach out to them and to the related bargaining units, the associations, about the appropriate communication and next steps that are required of them to meet the mandate deadline. And so you should expect at the next board meeting another update about where we're at in the process. And I guess having said all that, I will hope that for this evening, that's our last conversation about COVID, and we can begin to focus on what our core business is, and that's teaching and learning. And so excited to transition to Amy Paris, and she's going to share with you a CTE 5-year plan and some pathways. And I don't want you to view this as a rubber stamp, but an opportunity for us to share the good work that's happening in CTE as we look to prepare kids for opportunities after high school, and a chance for you to ask questions and to celebrate really the good work that's going on in our schools.
Where we go? Now.
Okay.
Sorry, Adam. You're good. Pete got 1,700 views? What? That's impressive. We'll try to beat that next. So like he mentioned, the state does ask us to kind of run our updates around career and technical education by our board every year. So I did that in January, so it probably feels like I wasn't here that long ago. But we'll start this hopefully at the beginning of the year to kind of highlight work that was done the previous year. So I do appreciate a few minutes to kind of share that and what we're doing in career and technical education. It is pretty exciting. Because it relates to a graduation finishing piece, I think that's why it's really nice for the board to know what we're doing. So our first slide is just really a reminder. Sorry, there we go. That where the graduation pathways fit into the overall plan. So all of our students starting in 8th grade have a high school and beyond plan. So that's for them to think about what they want to do career assessments. Then they do have to meet the credit requirement, and for the Othello High School it's 26, for Desert Oasis it's 24. Then they have to meet a pathway, and that's what I'm here to talk about, and all of that together equals a meaningful diploma. That's the intent of this program. So there are 7 pathways to graduation. I explained this pretty in detail a few months back, so I won't review these too much, but I'm here to talk about the CTE course sequences and the work that goes into that. But as a reminder, we are offering the ASVAB at both high schools, maybe more than once a year even, for students who think that military might be the way that they want to go. It also provides excellent career guidance, so we're using it in multiple ways. And then there's many other ways that students can meet their ELA and math requirements by taking alternate tests, by taking dual credit courses. Obviously, the Smarter Balanced State Assessment is sort of the traditional way to do that. And then we also offer transition courses that if students earn a certain grade, they can meet the pathways that way. So I did include, it's always good, it's kind of like the high school Bible. It's called the Graduation Toolkit that OSPI puts out every year. They update it in August for that graduating class. So there is a live link to that if you're interested in more detail on each of those pathways. For CTE in specific, starting in 2019, they approved through the legislature that if a student takes 2 credits of rigorous coursework in the same program and a school board locally approves that coursework is in fact leading to an industry credential or a due credit opportunity, that can be a pathway for a student. If it's cross-program, which would be an example of maybe a student takes 2 business courses and then criminal justice, and they earn 2 credits that way, but they'll have a healthy pathway towards a criminal justice dual credit program at CB Tech or at Big Bend, then that might meet their pathway. So that's kind of what we've been working on. The next couple of slides show all of our program areas in CTE, and so we're at 7 now. And in addition to these ones that are listed, I did include a link to the actual courses. So these are the program areas, but I think it's interesting to see how we're growing in individual courses as well. The next slide is something that Ed and I have been working on for a year or so. So how do we message this to our students and to our parents and to anybody who will listen? Because it's kind of a detailed pathway. There's a million ways that they can meet this particular pathway, and they don't have to follow a prescripted course progression, they can sort of make up their own as long as they meet the requirements. So Ed put this together, and I really like it. We have a few more courses to update for this school year, but it shows the requirements on the left side, the course availability in the middle, and then kind of an example at the bottom. It's through the business department. If they were to take computer applications 1, 2, and then accounting, that's our accounting pathway. And there's a lot of dual credit opportunities through that group of courses. The next 2 slides really highlight the work that our teachers have been doing to find certifications. So Jen actually asked about ICEV. So here it is. ICEV is actually, we found it because of COVID, maybe one of the silver linings. We needed online ways for our students to earn certifications. So ICEV was actually developed by agriculture teachers because there were no rubrics or really any formal way to do livestock judging and those kind of things and to train people. And it's just grown to all kinds of CTE course areas. We love it in both the agriculture program and in our health sciences. So there's a lot of ICEV certifications. You'll see up there that we're working towards new ones all the time. We have articulations with Big Bend courses now, so students can really start their transcripts with Big Bend, and then they have reciprocity across the state for all community colleges and a lot of 4 years as well. So it doesn't really even matter where you earn those credits for, but they can take them with them. So all of the green is new certifications and new opportunities that have been developed either in last school year 2021 or 2022. So we're pretty proud of that. And we're kind of moving to the idea that anytime we add a course, it needs to either have a dual credit opportunity with it or a certification so that a student can really see the value of it. They leave the course knowing that there's something they can put on a resume and go, do an interview and say, I have, first aid, or I have the BASE test is something we're looking at through biotech that will make them really, really marketable after they take that progression of courses. And then finally, this is just kind of where we're at in the CTE program. Pete mentioned the 5-year plan. The state moved us to 4-year plans this year, and that's a link to the work that we're doing in the department. There's 16 indicators in career and technical education that they look at, and they really want to see that we're meeting those goals every couple of years. So we've been working hard on that. We're still creating more promotional material, always working on new certifications. This year in our CBA, hopefully there's going to be a program through career and technical education where I can support new teachers who want to get on our bandwagon and make their courses career and technical education. Gives it a real nice career component. You can take math classes, you can take any classes and really see how you can parlay that into a career later on. So that's exciting. And then we're in the talk right now. Our athletic trainer has taught a sports medicine class in the past. And so we're looking to articulate that for the next school year, which is really cool. And a couple other things I've heard about in our region that I'm looking at. So that's sort of the state of the union in career and technical education.
So where are we at on the approval process? Are we needing to approve what you're presenting tonight?
Yes, not necessarily with a motion, but it needs to be in the board minutes, and that on this date we had a discussion about it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And any concerns or reach out to me individually, and I'd be happy to listen to things you hear about. There's just so much growth and room for opportunities in this department.
I have a couple questions, Amy.
Yes.
Sorry, did I cut you off, Mike? Well done, by the way. This is thrilling. I'm so excited about this. How many credits are we shy of a student being able to get an AA without leaving the campus?
Well, so far what we've been able to do, it really depends on your teachers and your programs. I have a couple on fire that all of their courses are articulated, so they can get dual credits. Let's just use Big Bend. And we are just starting the work now to fill in those gaps. So we've just been excited to have a handful of classes to offer kids.
For sure.
But we're to the point now where
I would say in early childhood education, for example, that's when we're really close in, articulating maybe 2 or 3 more classes, so that's about 15 credits, and those kids could be very close to their first year. And then if you also take UW English or a math class career in the high school, or a college in the high school math, altogether, those easily can take you to a first year. The issue comes into place when, so I take this whole pile of credits to a university, what they're specifically going to do with it. So one of the things I'm learning with my new opportunity here with Big Bend is that they're interested in reaching out and bringing courses to campus, to us. Much more satellite kind of model, which I think would be amazing for our kids and our families, our adult education as well. So I can't give you an exact number, but I would say that's where we're moving, for sure.
That.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's be no traveling then for the kids. They could just get it right there.
Right. And again, because they can use those credits anywhere, we have a lot of our Running Start students go to South and go to CBC, and that's great. But to know that they could earn some in Othello and then take them anywhere for a transfer degree or whatever would be such a valuable opportunity.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy. There's just so much that you're doing. Just it's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, great job, great presentation.
Yes.
It's good to see that you guys are actively modifying, expanding this, creating more opportunities. I know that is vital, especially for our community where a lot of our kids are going to graduate and go into the work field directly. We've seen that, so that we as a district can afford them these opportunities, I think, is essential. It's vital. Kudos to your entire team, whoever that is comprised of, and no, I think you've got the support of the board to continue doing what you're doing.
You're killing it, and I
Wonderful.
don't think we'd expect anything otherwise.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
Amy.
All right, thank you, Amy. I think, yep, Mike, I just wanted to wrap this portion up and say that, I think much of our time over the last several months has been spent on important activities and important discussions as they relate to COVID and student health and safety and staff health and safety. So it's refreshing when you have an opportunity to talk about teaching and learning, which is in and of itself very, very challenging. So appreciate the hard work that's happening in the CTE world, and excited to hear a little bit more about teaching and learning from Jessica Shank as she provides the Mcfarland Middle School site visit report. And so we welcome her to the mic, and thanks, Jessica.
Now is it working? Perfect. Okay.
Yay.
So good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight. We absolutely enjoyed seeing you at Mcfarland last week. And tonight what I want to do is give you some more information about exactly what we're doing to improve the learning of Othello's 7th and 8th graders. So we are Mcfarland. This year we had the fantastic opportunity to teach all 739 of our students how to use lockers for the very first time. Last year students didn't use lockers at all. And so this year I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was, and I'm not saying that it was easy, but I think we did a pretty good job with that. And ultimately what we're really happy about is just having all of our students on campus all together at the same time. And so that was a picture from our locker night. Okay, we're definitely off to a great start this year. You may have heard that we have a different structure to our schedule. And what that change has allowed us to do is offer about a dozen new elective classes that give students more options for their schedule. It provides, and students also alternate which classes they go to each day. So they're not going to all classes every day. That lessens the load of like how much they need to worry about on a daily basis. And then because we have longer class periods, it gives the opportunity for deeper learning when students are in class. This year we've had multiple opportunities for parent involvement, including a couple different open house nights, our weekly MMS Connections newsletter, And we also had our first parent group meeting where, and I know we only had about a dozen parents attend. We do have plans to continue that this year and grow it to be able to hear from our parents on a more regular basis. And of course, COVID safety, and this will just be a brief COVID moment. COVID safety has been a priority for us as well, and I want to give a big thank you to our school nurse, Katie Garfield, and assistant principal, Brenda Dunn, who have been leading our COVID tracing work when we're alerted to students who have tested positive for COVID. We are constantly monitoring the situation, and this includes reinforcing mask wearing and examining our own policies about how students move around the building. So for example, we recently changed our lunch procedures to split students up more so there's fewer students in the commons at a time, which allows us to spread out more and give them more space when they're eating.
Before you go to the next page, you said fewer classes each day. So how many classes are they in each day?
They go to advisory on Tuesdays through Fridays. And then they go on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're going to periods 1, 2, and 3. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays, going to periods 4, 5, and 6.
So
Mondays they go to everything.
Every day.
Yes.
And then 3 classes.
We also, at lunchtime, we have what's called Mustang Time, and that's kind of been the secret to us being able to insert more elective options, is to provide that, but it's a shorter class period.
Okay. And I saw many times teachers touching noses or fix that.
Yeah,
So when we were there.
We are monitoring it closely. Okay, so what I'd like to spend time talking about tonight is the story about how Mcfarland has made some significant changes the last couple of years. And this is something that I think we've talked about the last couple of times we've come for our board presentations and your site visits, but what I'd like to do tonight is present some data about, to really back up the turnaround that's happening at Mcfarland. Most years we give staff, students, and parents a CEE survey, and that stands for the Center for Educational Effectiveness. And it's a survey that happens across the district. In fact, most parents would be familiar with this at conferences when they're asked to, you're often given a link or a Chromebook to take this survey. And what the survey does is you'll see that the 11 characteristics of high-performing schools, it gives us information about how we are doing compared to schools across the nation and measure ourselves with questions based on those characteristics. So on the next slide, student performance in math or reading is certainly important data, and as the school year goes on, we'll be able to give you updates about more of the academic areas at Mcfarland. But before we can make significant gains in student performance, we need to be building the trust and the capacity of the staff, because that is the foundation of what will lead to student improvement. One of the indicators on the report is the school's readiness for change, and that's measured by problem solving, conflict resolution, and a sense of urgency among staff. So the chart that you see there, you've got about 3 years of staff feedback, and the green bars are the most recent year, 2020-21. And this last year we had 38 staff members respond. We have 77 staff total, so 38 responded to the survey. And the green bars represent the percent of positive responses of those 38 staff members. So 67% said that when there was a problem at my school, we talk about how to solve it. 69% said there's a willingness to address conflict in this school. And 76% said that there's that staff share a high sense of urgency around the need to improve. What I'm encouraged by is we just experienced one of the hardest years in education that we have ever experienced. And yet we're still making some gains in very critical areas. That's not to say that our job is done, though. I'm very aware that that's 30% of our staff that are saying, no, there's still work to do there. And please listen to us more, and please reach out to us more. And so that's work that I'm committed to doing. The next slide there were dozens of questions on the survey. So I just selected some that I was most encouraged by. And so this is just a sample, and this gives you that percentage of positive responses along with the percent change from the last time the survey was given. So 74% of our staff said that we expect all staff to perform responsibilities with a high level of excellence. 77% said that they understand the instructional strategies to support social emotional learning objectives, and I believe that's evidence of our character strong work. 87% said the curricula we teach are aligned with the state learning standards. And for the last 2 years, we've been talking about teacher clarity and how we can be very clear about what we're teaching and why we're teaching it. And so for me, that's evidence that we're headed in the right direction. On the next slide, we have our parent responses, and we had 312 parents complete that survey. And parents have been historically very positive about the school, but here again, we have some celebrations about how we are improving communication with parents. And with these, the percent change to me is significant, that an 18% growth in how the school communicates about school progress, 12% growth in both the understanding the expectations of the school and understanding that, or believing that our school is providing a caring and supporting environment for students. And here's where I'd really want to thank the staff as a whole, because we couldn't get those results if the staff wasn't showing up every day last year, figuring out how to do what sometimes felt like the impossible, and still making sure that that hard work got done. The next slide is our student feedback, and we had 397 responses. The student examples here do not have a percent change because it's been 2 years since we last gave that survey. I don't remember the reasons why, but so it's a 2-year gap for that survey data, where it was a 1-year gap for the staff and the parents. Again, these are just a sampling of the types of questions that were on the survey. And while we have some celebrations, there are also some opportunities for improvement. It might be argued that it might not be realistic to get 100% on some of these survey questions, but in my opinion, I think 100% of our students should feel safe at school. And so that's an area where we are going to put a lot of effort into this year. I also think that we should expect significant improvements in those last 3 questions as well. We want students to enjoy coming to school, and we want their learning to be useful and interesting to them. I was encouraged this morning when we talked to our staff about this same information, getting some feedback from them where they're saying, we think we're on the right track. We've already started some changes that will result in higher responses from students this year. So the next slide, I'm going to take you back to the staff questions for just a moment. I definitely had some celebrations, but we also have some areas for improvement there as well. So here are 3 areas where we had lower percent positives from what you saw on the previous slide. And the CEE survey report calls these areas for improvement the land of opportunity. And I couldn't agree more, because this is exactly where we should be focusing our work. So these 3 questions have to do with how staff feel that the PLCs are supporting student learning, how we're working with students to provide intervention opportunities, and how we reflect on the instructional practice to inform conversations about improvement. And all of this goes back to what we've already, we shared with you in August about how we're focused on collaboration, and PLCs are one of those major pieces. So on the next slide, you'll see a diagram that should look somewhat familiar. Carlos Gonzalez, Brenda Dunn, and I shared this with you at the beginning of August. And we talked about the instructional core, and that's in the various ways that we're going to focus on the relationships between students, teachers, and content. We believe that by intentionally collaborating as a staff on these things, our goal, we'll realize our goal to improve student learning. So I'll give you just a few details about how we are especially addressing those professional learning communities and the responsive instruction. Okay, so PLCs. You saw in the survey data that many teachers are not satisfied with their PLCs. And so this has been a major piece of nearly every meeting we've had the last couple months. We start PLC Monday together as a staff with a short learning opportunity together before the teams break up for their collaborative work. We're using that book that you see pictured there, the PLC Plus Playbook, as a resource to help our teams focus on those PLC guiding questions. And that helps us ensure that when we take that late start Monday, when the kids aren't with us, that we're using that time to improve student learning. Part of the PLC work also includes the intentional use of assessment data to make informed instructional decisions. All of this is a work in progress. We have not arrived, but I'm really looking forward to being able to give you updates as the year goes on about how we're progressing. The last slide there is a list of some of the ways that we are some of the actions that we're taking in the area of responsive instruction. And that's the relationship between students and teachers. When you came to Mcfarland last week, you each participated in a character strong lesson and an advisory class. And that's how we're making sure that we're bringing SEL to every student every week. As a staff, we're also starting to learn about restorative practices and building relationships and conflict resolution. Our schedule this year allows us to provide more targeted intervention classes in both math and reading. We have ELL support classes for more students than we've been able to in the past. We're piloting new curriculum materials that we hope will engage students as they learn. And because we have these long 90-minute classes, and they are long, we know that we have to think about student engagement in terms of brain breaks and movement. And so that's something that we're working as a staff to collaborate on best practices about. Finally, the right-hand side of that instructional core is the relationship between students and content. And we're calling that student ownership. So we're looking at how well students understand what they're learning and looking at how we can engage them to self-evaluate that learning as well. And then also continue our work to prepare students for career pathways in high school, which is, supports the work that Amy was just talking about a moment ago. So that I know that's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. And what's interesting about doing this presentation early in the year is this is information about what our plan is. And so hopefully I will have the opportunity to give you updates throughout the year about how we actually implement it and what the results are for kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Don't know if there's any comments from the board about our visit.
I appreciate that you showed us great progress and the stuff that you're going to work on, and that you're really going to focus on, that it's not all, we're doing amazing. Hey, there's some other spots too. And that it can be positive as well. You know, I love that name, Land of Opportunity. But that you're seeing the realities of it, and that you do have a consistent form that you're using year after year. So is this your third year as the principal?
Yes.
Awesome. Great.
You know, it was a spectacular visit, and if I can, I admire your leadership style, because you're very inclusive of the entire team, and I try to implement that as much as I can, whether it's on a personal level or in my role as the president of this school board. It does take a village, and I know people listening say, oh, you guys say this to every school that you guys visit, that you can feel that the atmosphere is changing and the family camaraderie and everything else, but it's palpable. And I think some of these changes that have come, the majority of these improvements are because of the environment that's been set by you and your staff. The teamwork, the collaboration amongst the three of you is very visible. To have strong, hefty Mr. Gonzalez, you know, cede you your place and commend you and everything else, I think comes from what you're trying to implement, so I commend you on that. And if your staff is listening tonight, thank you all very much. Very much appreciated the fact that you all are there for the right reasons. You all are there to, I'm not going to say eradicate the time loss that we went through because of what we're going through, but you guys are there changing the lives of our students. I'd like to, like Jen said, the acknowledgement of the land of opportunity, I was going to say the areas of improvement that you guys have, but when you gave it that other definition, I like that. Celebrate, and then, you know, recognize that there's still work to do, and you guys are willing to do it, and I have no doubt in my mind that you guys will see this through, and everything that you guys are striving for, even that 100% of the kids feeling safe, I think you guys are on the right track, and eventually you guys will get that. So it was a great visit. Thank you to everyone. That schedule thing where you allowed us autonomy to just peek in wherever we wanted, I think that was new, it was neat. Brought more freedom, welcomeness, and I think you started a trend that I think will continue for this year anyway. Just thank you. Please, if someone isn't listening, let your staff know how much we appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item E1. For the sake of Director Johnson, we've had this a couple times, Jen? Is this like our...
This is our second reading.
Yeah, and I got ahead of myself, and I wanted to just approve this last time, and the comment was made, let's let Director Johnson take a peek at this and see if he's got any observations or any additions or modifications that you would like to be made to this?
Or anyone.
Anyone, yeah. I want to appreciate Marissa. She sent me an email with different policies from surrounding schools and asked if there was any modifications, and I let her know that I was okay with as it was written.
Is this a modification or a new? Is this a modification or a new policy?
So I took it directly out of policy governance and put it into district operating procedures, put it into a DOP, because it no longer did the district have an equity policy when we voted to do away with policy governance. So I took it, when we had approved it then, I just took it word for word, came up with a new code and section for it. So we have approved it as written before, but where and is it still what we want? When I had written it originally and brought it as a proposal under policy governance, I had looked at quite a few other districts, what they're said, how it was.
Okay.
It's very similar to WASDA's, but
Okay.
not the same.
My next question is for Pete. You mentioned to us that in the future meetings, you'll be starting to bring us some of the policies to review. And possibly the first one would be the 1,000.
Yep.
Is this something that would be included in that policy review?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If the board formally adopts it, then we would want to have
Is
a
it-
conversation about it. If you do a quick search in board docs on the Othello School District website for policies, a policy 1005, key functions of the board. The very first piece on that is around vision and the board setting a vision for the school district. And it's one of the first places that you find the term equity in school district policy. And that's, looks like it was originally adopted in 1998. And there's a very similar statement in there that a commitment to education, excellence, and equity for all students. So it's very similar to what's shared here. What is different is that the board would be adopting a specific equity policy. So I think it's a conversation for the board to have about whether or not you think it needs to be as explicit as that, or is it already represented in the operating policies.
Okay.
But certainly we would, 1005, which is already adopted and already there, would be part of that initial review that we would do.
So if I'm hearing correctly, Pete, you could come back whenever you bring the time frame back and say there's some redundancy between 1005 and 1010, and we could modify those or combine those or something to that effect?
Absolutely.
If this was approved as.
If it was approved, yeah, then again, I think it's important that that idea about redundancy is considered, but it's also this idea about emphasis and specificity and being explicit in calling out the term. And if that's where the board is at and that's the expectation of the board, then certainly you could adopt it. But it's one we would review as well. We wouldn't just say, well, that was just adopted. We would add it to the bank of everything we want to review. But again, if you look at 1005, you'll see very similar components. It's just probably why the resources that Marisa shared with you, they're very consistent, the information that comes from WASDA and that boards have adopted in the past. And I would imagine that one from the Othello School District in 1998 came from the folks at WASDA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here, Mike?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I don't.
If we want to adopt this, I would need a motion to approve this, knowing the explanation that's just been given by the superintendent, that when they go to review this series, it might be combined, it might be altered, it might be not the same as what is being approved tonight. There's a chance of that happening where it's combined with other stuff. Or they may bring different verbiage to perhaps enhance this or do something different. So I think if we want to continue on and make this a part of a DOP, that it's got to be approved tonight. Or we can just say, let's wait for the review of the 1000s, and if we're not happy with what's on 1005 and we think more needs added to it or something else, we at that time make those observations.
I personally think it's important for us to have a specific equity policy, that is all it is an equity policy, hence why I brought it forward. And even if we were to wait, that could be 3 months, that could be 3 years. Realistically, I mean, we don't have to, the district could not start with 1,000 or
So-
whatever.
Is that a motion for approval?
So I am motioning we approve DOP 1010.
There's been a motion made to approve DOP 1010. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second's been made by Director Prowse. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for that. Moving on to item F1, executive session. The Board of Directors will recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. Want to thank the folks that have joined us here tonight. Thank you for being with us. We will, board, take a recess for 2 minutes and re-adjourn in Pete's office. Thank you very much. Good night.
Am I supposed to look this?
I got the paperwork this afternoon in the mail. Barney showed up. I sat down.